In 1980, I was 13 years old, and I had this 13-year-old pen pal from London, Dan McIntyre, and one of his letters announced to me, he said, "I'm now in a London punk rock band called the Apostles, and you mustn't call me Dan McIntyre. Now you must call me Dan Apostle." And then he said, "You know what punk rock is, don't you?" So I got that letter, and I was like, "Yeah, I know what punk rock is, like the Police." And I sent out the letter, and I got a letter back from him, and he said, "The Police are not punk rock." And I wrote a letter back to him, and I said, "Wait, their lead singer doesn't even use his real name. He uses the name Sting. Their most famous song is a love song to a prostitute that like sort of cranks out. And they all have spiky hair. How are they not punk rock?" And he wrote me back, and he said, "I am going to have to send you some mixtapes." And so he started sending me some mixtapes to teach me what punk rock was. And so I would get these tapes from the UK, and it would say, "Please hand cancel on them." And it would be cassettes, cassettes filled with Theater of Hate and Crass, and all these London bands of 1980 who were extending the legacy of punk rock past the initial Clash and Sex Pistols and the Jam. And on the back of one of the fanzines that he sent me was a picture of a group of London punks who were holding instruments that I did not associate with punk rock. They were holding an accordion and a tin whistle and other instruments that I could not at that time identify. And they sort of looked like a barnyard dance had been taken over by the denizens of a mental hospital. And the band was called Pogue Mahone, which the fanzine writer translated as "Kiss My Ass" in some ancient dialect of Irish Gaelic. And that was my first experience. I didn't know what they sounded like. I knew it had to be some kind of carnival. But that was my first experience of seeing the image of the great London and Irish poet of punk rock, Shane MacGowan, and the band that would come to be called the Pogues. And in the summers, I would stay in New Haven oftentimes as a teenager, and my parents would go to this summer house in Maine, and my father would write me letters trying to get me interested in like Schubert and Brahms and Beethoven, and I would write letters back where I was trying to get my father interested in the Pogues. So I would say, "The music you're sending me sounds good, but there's nothing in it that matches like this incredible summary of the immigrant experience in the Pogues' music. Did the old songs taunt or cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years, or did your teardrops quickly dry? Oh no," says he, "'twas not to be. On a coffin ship I came here, and I never even got so far that they could change my name." And my dad said, "That's good. That's better than Gershwin. But I still want you to listen to that Schubert and Haydn that I sent to you." And then later in the 1980s, I went to theater school at Trinity College in Dublin. And when I went there, I went with my girlfriend from American Theater School, Lisa, and we were, oh, excuse me. Oh, it's better. Okay. And Lisa and I were in that phase. You've probably, at some point in your life, been in this phase where you're in that part of your relationship where you're really sort of breaking up, but you don't know it yet. So you think you're going to be together forever, but like if you can read your own subtext, you would know you're breaking up. And Lisa was trying to somehow make it better for me. I had put on a mixtape for her a song by the Pogues. And so she went out in Dublin. She went out, and it was the summer that If I Should Fall From Grace with God came out, and she went out and got this Pogues record. And you know, we were in that part of a relationship, very rarely intimate anymore, and I was like grumpy all the time, and I was like, oh, you could have bought that in America. And she was like, but we're in Dublin. And she put in this song. There was a Christmas song that she rightly knew was going to be a classic song, but the song, when I think of it now, I think like the song was her telling me where our relationship was at, and me sort of begging for it to keep going. So in this song, Christy McCall, the guest singer, is saying, you took my dreams from me when I first found you. And then Shane McGowan, like expressing my side, was saying, I kept them with my own. You can't make it all alone. I built my dreams around you, right? But we didn't know yet that that was a conversation with us. We just thought it was a Pogue song. But it's very uncomfortable when you're used to American college and you're suddenly at Trinity College in Dublin, because they have maids who make your bed for you. And I would never know what to do with my hands while my maid is making my bed. So I'd stand behind my maid. She was in her maid's outfit. And I would stand there and I would just be really uncomfortable and want to make a conversation. So one time I said, hey, I'm in Ireland for a very short time. What should I do while I'm here? And she said, oh, you must go to Killarney. It's a wee bit of heaven. And so I was like, okay, if there's one thing I can do for my maid, I'm going to go to Killarney. So I go to Lisa's room, and we get out the map, and we're like, okay, Killarney, don't see a place called Killarney that's near enough to Dublin. We can get there on the Dublin area rapid transit train. But there's a place called Killiney. So we're thinking, well, it must be her accent. It must be Killiney that she meant. So Lisa and I get on the Dart. We go down to Killiney, we get off the train, and there is nothing in Killiney, like nothing. Like we're looking around and like, there's trees. There's trees and there's like a hilly road and nothing else. And we're like, where's the wee bit of heaven? We're looking around and we walk all the way to the top of the hill, and then we see in a little park there's a fair going on. And so we go to the fair, and there's onions and potatoes and stuff like that, and we're looking around. We're obviously strangers, obviously from a foreign country. And this guy comes up to him. He says, hi, you look like strangers. I'm Billy Devitt. This is Mary Devitt. And we're from Killiney. Do you have any questions about the town? And we started talking to them. I wish I could remember anything that they said about Killiney, but they told us everything about Killiney. And then the band started playing. The music picked up, and they were playing I'll Tell Me Ma, which is a song that goes, she is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City, but they were singing, she is the belle of Dublin City, because they were near Dublin. And then later in the song they were saying, she's the belle of Killiney City. And Killiney is really no city at all, but I just remember that. And I remember Lisa and I, we danced. Like with Lisa, I had only danced to like the style council. You know, we'd like look at each other from across the room and be like, you know, like we had never like danced. So I'm dancing with Mary Devitt, this old woman, and she's dancing with Billy Devitt, and then we switch partners, and she's dancing with me, and she has her hands in my hair, and I have my hands on her waist, and we kiss. I think in my memory, I feel like it's the last time we ever kissed there at the fair in Killiney, because we would break up a month later. But I would go back to Trinity College and say to my maid, I was like, you're right, Killiney is incredible. And she was scandalized. She's like, you went to Killiney? Killiney's nothing. I told you to go to Killarney. You know, but for us, somehow, Killiney was a wee bit of heaven. That place that we found because we were looking for a wee bit of heaven, we found it there in Killiney. And then we went back to America and broke up. And I went back to New Haven, and she went back to Santa Barbara. And I got a letter from her, and in it was a mixed tape. And on the mixed tape was the Pogues. And it wasn't from I Should Fall From Grace with God. It was an earlier song that I had put on a mixed tape for her. And so I could hear Shane McGowan singing a cover song, actually, that he made his own, Dirty Old Town. And it goes, I met my love by the gasworks grove, Dreamed a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Thank you.